Namaste everybody, Lisa Romano here, the Breakthrough Life Coach, and today we're going to be doing a video on narcissistic mothers and their sons. And I've gotten a number of requests from men who have said to me, hey, what about us? Like, I love your channel, but I think you kind of like favor women. And I would agree, with that. I do not have enough information on this channel about the relationship that men have with their narcissistic mothers. And I do apologize, and I will be paying attention to that moving into 2019 and doing more videos for you. So, because we do, as men become more aware of why they behave the way they do and why they feel the way they do, they're going to have to start thinking about their relationships that they've had with their mothers. And a relationship that a man has with his mother is very, very complicated. Just as a relationship with a daughter and her mother is very complicated. But I do think that as consciousness expands and a lot more men are willing to say, hey, I have feelings too, and I've had experiences too, and I want to understand myself. And as men become more comfortable with this idea that they're allowed to have feelings, amen, and they should understand their emotional sides, and they should get in touch with their feeling sides. I think that what will happen is, as we move forward, more and more men are gonna have to face what is really at the root of some of the things that they're struggling with. And so, I also want to preface this video by saying that this is not a black and white issue. So just because you've had a narcissistic mom, that does not mean that the scenarios that I lay out today absolutely have to, are in alignment with what you've experienced. You might have a unique experience, but I'm giving you what I have experienced in my own life, both personally and professionally with clients, and the types of letters that I get from YouTube viewers and people who write to me through my website and who have read my books. And so I put together a video, and I really hope that it speaks to many of you. So let's talk about a narcissistic mom, okay? A narcissistic mom, now remember, narcissism exists on a spectrum, but a narcissistic woman, specifically a mom, is someone who is not capable of attuning herself to her children. So her children are sort of like things that she owns, their property, and they owe her, right? So a healthy mom is someone who's able to see the needs of her child, and a child is an individual, and she understands that it's her job to support her child and nurture her child through development, and it's about helping the child develop their innate gifts and become individuals and be able to go out in the world and make a way for themselves, loving themselves, anchored to the self, and knowing that they're enough. But when you have a narcissistic mother, that's just not possible. So narcissistic women are obviously very self-absorbed. They are ego-centered. Their needs supersede the needs of anyone, especially their children and especially their spouse or their partners. In some cases, mom can come off very overt. So it's obvious that she's a narcissist. She's domineering, she's aggressive, she's abrasive, she is intolerant of other people's opinions. Everybody else is an asshole. Everybody else is stupid. The lady down the block is a bitch, and the woman across the street is an asshole, or the guy at the bank is a moron. Very negative. And so it's a little bit easier to see that this person is, narcissistic. And then you have narcissistic moms where it's not so easy to spot. Mom could be, come off like she's catering to the needs of her son. She can come off like she's doting on her son, like she actually really, really cares about her son. And you might not be able to witness or understand that there is enmeshment and there's a dependency that's being fostered. You might not be able to see it right away, right? And even with an overtly abrasive mom, the dependency is not that easy to spot. And so narcissistic mothers who are using their sons for a source of supply, what's happening is that there is an enmeshment happening. There is a desire, unconscious desire, I would say in some narcissistic moms' minds, I would imagine that there's a conscious desire to consume the son and to create a dependency upon her so that she always has a source of supply, so that the son never has the ability to go out and become a separate individual from her. Her agenda is to make sure she's number one. Her agenda is to make sure that this young man never goes out and leaves her. So women are considered a threat. Even friends, she'll consider his friends a threat. She'll find something wrong with every person that this little boy brings in the house. She'll have a problem with his friends' mothers or his friends' fathers. She'll have a problem with every teacher that the little boy has. You know, in some situations, we'll have a narcissistic mom who has married a very a codependent man, somebody who is highly empathic, and over time, this man runs out of steam. He just can't keep up with the arguments. He can't keep up with the anger. He has given up trying to make her happy. He has been emasculated. She comes at him. You know, she'll criticize, his manlyhood. She'll put him down in front of the children. She'll make fun of him sexually. She'll make fun of his penis. I mean, I've heard all sorts of different types of stories from men who have witnessed how their narcissistic mothers have battered their fathers. And they'll do it in front of the children, maybe not in front of neighbors and other family members, but behind closed doors. This is the kind of chaos that happens when you have a narcissistic mother and you have a father who is codependent and who has been emasculated and who has been just constantly beaten down, right? And so now what happens if you're her son, if you're the son of this couple, is that dad is not exerting boundaries. He's not asserting boundaries. You have no idea what it looks like, which means you have no neural wiring for how to go up against this type of a personality. You are being abandoned emotionally by this man who is just run out of steam. He just can't do it. He goes to work, he comes home, and he's criticized. He has to sleep on the couch. Nothing he does is ever good enough. There's always something to complain about. Nitpicking. And so, like I said, you've been abandoned by this man who should be teaching you how to, how to stand up for yourself and not be abused. But that's not happening. On the other side of the coin, on the flip side of the coin, this is your father. Your mom is putting him down. And you don't realize that what she's doing is really, she's conditioning you to be afraid to be like him. So what she's doing is she's trying to make sure that you feel dependent upon her and obligated to her, and you have this fear of disappointing her. So she is baiting you like you bait a fish on you bait fish to get them on the hook. She's trying to find a way to make sure that you don't do to her what your dad has done to her, which is abandon her, because that's the way she sees it. And so, narcissistic mothers may have issues with men abandoning them, not their fault, but certainly their responsibility to heal it so that they don't perpetuate this with their children. And the son now is carrying the burden of making sure that mom stays the center of his life, because that's what mom needs. Mom needs to know that her son has put her in the center of his life. So the son of a narcissistic mother pretty much is terrified, early years, terrified, living in a state of survival, a lot of chaos. There's a loss of self. There's a problem in terms of emotional development. This little boy is not permitted to feel free enough to explore his environment without fear. And so there's a lot of insecurity for a little boy who has a narcissistic mom, and that carries over. During adolescence, when this young man wants to bring home a date, the mom will find a problem with the date. The mom will actually gaslight the date and will create problems. And the son will get the message that, mommy's not happy that you brought this girl home. That girl's a bimbo. That girl's this. That girl's gonna only want you for your money. That girl's gonna go out and get pregnant by you. You're gonna have to support her and some kid for the rest of your life. I mean, you could be 12 and that's the kind of crap that your mother's telling you. And so you're getting the message that I've had some men tell me that their mothers would always play sick. The minute they wanted to go out to play baseball, the minute they had a girlfriend or they had a date or they were supposed to do a sleepover, mommy would get sick. And the boy would have to abandon and prove to his mother that she was number one in his life. And this just gets repeated over and over and over and over and over. So there's a lot of fear. There's a fear of disappointing mom. You feel obligated to her to put her needs first. And when you're focusing on trying to please mom, you're losing yourself, right? And so when this becomes an issue for you, there's this, you don't have the ability to connect to a self, right? So you feel like you have low self-esteem. You feel like you lack an identity. And so now when you're around other people, you feel insecure. You have anxiety, but that's not your fault. It's absolutely not your fault. So as you get older, and let's say you want to get married, and let's say you do get married, what will happen is this mother of yours will be a problem the entire time you're with this woman until you learn to disconnect and detach, and probably you need to go into therapy, and you need to find an amazing therapist who can attune themselves to you. It's very, very important. You have to feel attuned to if you are the son of a narcissistic mother. You have to feel heard, because that is what you have lost. You have never felt heard. And every experience with this woman who raised you was about her. It was never about you. So you need to be able to have someone mirror this, your reality, back to you, so that you can feel full and nurtured on the inside and resolve all these conflicts that are residing within you that are not your fault. So if you're the son of a narcissistic mother, and let's say you do have a partner, and let's say you do have children, mom is going to be a problem, and mom wants to make sure that you understand that she comes first. And she wants to make sure that the women in your life and even your children know that mom comes first above everything. So women are considered competition, and narcissistic moms do see their daughters as competition. It's sick, but it's true. So narcissistic mom will see the women in your life as competition. Your wife will definitely feel like, hey, what's up? Like there's a mistress in the room, and even though you might not be sleeping with her, this energy is a part of your life. You will be conflicted if you're not aware that mom's a narcissist and that she's trying to control you and that she wants to be center stage, and she doesn't really care about any chaos that she's creating in your life with your wife. Then if you're not aware of that, you might be confused, and you might push your wife around, and you might push your wife back, because you have all this conflicts and you've been groomed since you're a little boy to worry about mommy, right? And you might have tremendous fear about cutting her off, which is what she's wanted to do. That's the bait. She has gained control over your root chakra. She has gained control over a very primitive fear, which is the fear of being abandoned by the creature who created you, right? That's like death to a newborn, right? Mommy, please don't abandon me. And so you might not realize that your mother is intrusive, that your mother talks bad about your wife, that your mother has no compassion or empathy for you, nor does she have compassion or empathy for your wife. You might not recognize that mom talks bad about everybody. You might not recognize that mom has a difficult time maintaining friendships. You might not realize that mom has to be superior to everybody. You might not realize that. Mom might have a drinking problem. Mom might have a shopping problem or gambling problem. There might be some underlying addiction, sex addiction, that you're not aware of. And because she has primed you to fear being able to set a boundary, you, as the son of a narcissistic mom, may have marital problems or relationship problems with females who are feeling this tug of war. Sons of narcissistic mothers are very conflicted. They love this person who has conditioned them to be afraid to let them go. And if you are the son of a narcissistic mother, you may struggle with codependency, you may struggle with addiction, you may struggle with low self-esteem, you may struggle with feeling like an alien in your own skin, you may have tremendous cognitive dissonance when it comes to mom. You might love her and hate her at the same time. You might have tremendous rage when it comes to women. You might, because you're so angry at your mom, but you might not understand where it's coming from. And that rage is valid. That doesn't mean we abuse women, and that doesn't mean we blame our girlfriends or our wives or our daughters or whatever, or the cashier, at the corner store. What it means is that we recognize, as a son of a narcissistic mother, we recognize that we have been abused. We recognize that we have not been permitted to grow and to develop and to attune ourselves to ourselves. We have not been permitted to be who we were supposed to be. We have had our emotions screwed with. We have been manipulated and we have been toyed for this woman's agenda. And the anger and the rage that you feel is valid. And that's why it's important to work this out in psychotherapy. It's important to work this out with somebody who gets it, right? Very, very important that if you're going to go into therapy, you find somebody who is well-versed in narcissism, especially when it comes to being the child of a narcissist, and well-versed in being able to allow you to express your anger and express your rage and to get it all out so that you can work it out, so that you can be more logical and rational about how you feel, so that you can make decisions regarding your future. It's not your fault if you're experiencing codependency. Lots of men who have narcissistic mothers find themselves as codependent. They tend to be the types of men that women walk all over. They tend to be the type of men who are afraid of making women angry. They tend to be the type of men who have attracted women into their lives who can take advantage of them. There also is another take on this. Some men of narcissistic mothers end up with high narcissistic traits themselves, where in some situations where mom has put her son on a pedestal, and I've seen this happen where there's an only child situation, and the son is elevated and put on a pedestal, and mom, seems very sweet and very coddling and very nurturing and all of that, but there's enmeshment and there's almost an emotional incest that can happen. And mom isn't as overt as another narcissistic mom. She's kind of passive aggressive in her comments about women. She's kind of passive aggressive about being left alone. But the message is, don't ever leave me. The message is, I have to come first. So she might say things like, that girl's not good enough for you. Or, what, she should treat you better. What, she doesn't know what she has in you. And there's always this elevation. And to a son, that feels great. Mom thinks I'm awesome, But what it does is, and then what happens is it could be like a mother-daughter, a mother-son tag team. Now, if you're not aware of the enmeshment and the dependency upon mom's approval and need for validation, and the way she's manipulated the situation in which now you make sure that she's the goddess of your life forever. If you're not aware of what's happening, if you don't know that that's dysfunctional and that you have not cut the cord to mom, then when you attract a female into your life, what will happen is there will be a competition. And it will be you and your mother against this female. If you are the son of a narcissistic mother, there are so many ways that this can play out. If you have an overtly narcissistic mother, it might be easier for you to see it, and you might be able to say, like, wow, my mother turned me against every female that I ever brought in the house, or my mother talked bad about everybody, every man, every woman, every child. My mother just infused me with the idea that the world was a scary place, and now I get it. She wanted me to need her because in needing her, she afforded herself a supply. Because if I need my mom and I'm afraid to not make her number one in my life, then my mother always has this source of a narcissistic supply. I'm always going to need her and mirror back to her a sense that she's freaking awesome, right? Narcissistic mothers are not thinking about when they are no longer here. A healthy mother knows that it's her job to prepare her child for when she is no longer here on planet Earth. Narcissistic mothers don't care. They feel entitled to exploit you emotionally. They will guilt you. They will, make you feel like you're not making the right decisions. They will create great guilt inside of you, great shame inside of you. It will be difficult for you to make a decision without your mother. So as an adolescent, she will beat you down. She will, insinuate that you're not doing anything right. That's the overt narcissistic mother, where it's easier to see. If you want to go do things on your own, she will find ways to gaslight you. She will find ways to insinuate that that's a stupid idea. She will find ways to clip your wings. As you grow up and you attract females, she will find something wrong with every female. She will gaslight the females in your life. If you get married, this woman will be a constant source of pain for you and your wife. She will resent your children. She will resent your wife. She will resent you when you call her up and you act like you tell her that something wonderful happened. She'll find a way to downgrade it. Her agenda is to get you to worry about her. If you give her any idea that she is being replaced, there's going to be an issue. One of the most devastating stories I heard about a narcissistic mother and her son was a mom who actually died on her son's wedding day. She was so beside herself that her son was getting married and he was the only child, and she took care of his banking, and he was in his 40s and he still lived at home. She bought his clothes, she bought his underwear. Hello. And when this man finally decided that he wanted to get married, she suddenly started having health problems. And the day of the wedding, she had to be wheeled down the aisle in a wheelchair. She was so distraught over her son replacing her, at least that's the way she saw it, right? That she actually ended up in the emergency room and died on the day her son got married. Are you freaking kidding me? True story, I'm not kidding. And so it's important, if you're the son of a narcissistic mother, you may feel very, very conflicted. You may have anger. You may have rage. If you are not aware of what's going on, then you might have a wife who's like, dude, what's up? Like, your mother should not be calling you 10 times a day. Like, your mother should not be talking about me. Your mother should not be expecting you to go over there 12 times a day. This is not healthy. Why is she talking badly about your dad all the time? Your father is withering away, So you might have a wife who's like, pay attention. And if you don't see what's really going on, you might think that your wife is jealous of your mother. But really, it's the opposite. Your mother is jealous of your wife. And this can create great conflict in your relationship. If you are single, you may struggle with trusting women. Your mother may have done a number on you and made you not trust women and insinuated that women are not to be trusted. On top of that, you don't trust your own damn mother, right? So it's difficult for you to trust that you're sitting across from a woman whose words that you can trust, because you can't trust your mother. You know that there's something tied to everything that she says. She's going to throw something up in your face. That is your experience. So trusting that this woman has your best interest at heart is almost impossible. So you will struggle with trusting women. Now, I've experienced men who become people pleasers and become doormats for a woman, and they actually will attract women who are abusive towards them, right? And they won't know how to set boundaries, and it's just a repeat. It's like they marry their mom. And then I've had the experience of men who take on narcissistic traits. So they felt conflict with their mother, they felt controlled by their mother, so their agenda is no woman's going to control me, no girlfriend's going to control me, no wife is going to control me, because they're a little bit more aware of how they feel about their mother. They might hate their mother, right? They still might want a relationship with the female and a sexual relationship with the female, but they might struggle with conflict because their mother was such a tyrant, right? And then we have a type of man who marries and is able to have a relationship with a woman, but is unable to cut the apron strings to mom, who really feels in the middle, you know, who was trying to please the wife and trying to please the mom, and everything is just a mess because he doesn't know how to set boundaries, and he's very conflicted, and he's terrified to cut his mother loose, just terrified, right? And don't forget, we have, you know, all this neural wiring associated with women suck and they're bitches. She's going to take you to the cleaners. You know, she's going to look at her. She stays home all day. What is she just spending your money? And so a man in that situation who's had this wiring from his mother, you know, does he let his mother go, who he knows doesn't want him for his money or whatever? Does he let her go, who's been this constant, you know, mirroring that he's awesome? Or does he stick with his wife, and is he afraid that she might divorce him, you know, and take the house and take the kids and alimony and all that other crap, which is a possibility these days, right? And so if you're the son of a narcissistic mother, you got a lot going on. And there are so many ways that this programming can manifest in your life. And so, you know, it's so important that we learn about narcissism. It's so important that we understand that what happened to us in our childhood affects us as adults today. It's so important. I remember when I went into psychotherapy and my therapist wanted to talk about my childhood, I was like, why? You know, I want to talk about my relationship with my husband, you know, and I didn't get it because I was so below the veil of consciousness. Hello, 400 plus YouTube videos later, 6 books, a couple of coaching programs, and you know, Facebook groups and Instagram, you know, and a Twitter account. That's all I talk about is how your childhood affects you. So if you're a man and you had a narcissistic mother, you must understand what has happened to you as a result. And you must understand the tremendous consequences that having a narcissistic mother has had. And it's scary, dude. It's scary because you know what the reality is when it comes to getting married? There's always a chance that, you know, you could get divorced. And there's always a chance that you could be abandoned by a female, right? There's always that chance. And the same thing with women. There's always a chance that when you marry a man, you know, and, you know, you have abandonment issues, there's always a chance that you can be abandoned by this person. Now, that's really something that we need to heal, especially if we have narcissistic mothers, because that fear will keep us stuck. It might cause us to be avoidant emotionally and emotionally unavailable. It might cause us to be highly narcissistic, you know, because we're afraid of being abandoned. We're shame-based, and so we have to come off like we don't need anybody. And so we might come off codependent. We might become codependent. We might enmesh with other people because we have a fear of being abandoned. And so I think it's so important that all of us recognize how having narcissistic parents affect us as adults. And we have to heal this gaping wound inside of our hearts that has been created by this narcissistic parent. We have not been attuned to. We have never felt good enough for this narcissistic person. We have now are living lives where we feel insecure, we don't have an identity, we're struggling with relationships, we have this need to feel seen, but we're afraid of being seen. We have a need to be vulnerable, but we're afraid of being engulfed and enmeshed with. We have a need to trust people, but we don't trust people. We don't know how to trust the self. We have a need to be loved, but we don't love the self. I mean, are you kidding me? This is what happens to us as adults. And so if you are the son of a narcissistic mother, there is help. I would say the most important thing that you can do is research. Understand the consequences of what has happened to you. Understand that if you've had a dad who has been beaten down by a narcissistic mother, and you haven't seen a man assert boundaries, it is not your fault if you don't know how to assert boundaries in a relationship with a female or with other people. That's not your fault. You know, if you have a mom who puts you on a pedestal and now you're starting to realize, like, oh my God, that is such that she created a dependency on me, and so that I would never leave her and no other woman would ever replace her. For her, you're starting to become aware of that. You might start to feel angry. That's normal. You know, your childhood was robbed from you. Your innocence was robbed from you. You know, your ability to feel vulnerable has been robbed from you, right? So your anger is valid. That doesn't mean we go kick the dog or we go take it out on other innocent females. It means we do our work. It means we figure it out. A wonderful psychotherapist, and I tend to think that trauma specialists and psychotherapists that are skilled in the area of narcissistic abuse and childhood trauma, and those that you feel can attune themselves to you, you know, that really is, you have to really think about that before you go into therapy. Make sure that you at least investigate trauma specialists who specialize in narcissistic abuse, abandonment trauma. You know, very, very important that if you're going to deal with the psychotherapist, you deal with somebody who, when you interview them, you feel like they have the ability to attune themselves to you, because what's happened to you is that you have been completely invalidated. Your feelings have been marginalized. You have great conflict inside of you. You have a need as a man to feel seen, right? You have a need as a man to be able to express how you feel, truly feel, about your mother in a safe place without being judged. I've had clients tell me that they've had friends say, oh, you shouldn't feel that way about your mother. Or they've had a therapist say, like, you have to forgive your mother. There has to be a point where you are able to express how you truly feel about your mother in a safe environment so that you can heal this cognitive dissonance, learn to trust yourself, learn to be able to set boundaries with other people, and know that whether you are in a relationship with someone or not, you are enough. That you have your identity, you know who you are, you know that you're a divine being, you know that you have a right to be happy, you know that you have a right to attune yourself to your innate gifts, you know you have a right to joy. You have to know that you have that right. And with the right therapist, you can actually figure that out. So there is hope. There absolutely is hope. You know, and I just hope that those of you, those sons that are watching this video who have narcissistic mothers, I hope that you feel heard. And I promise you, I will be adding more videos to this channel about narcissistic mothers and their relationships with their sons. So you are enough, dear ones. It's not your fault. You were raised by a narcissistic mom. And the good news is you can heal. The good news is that you can reclaim your right to a healthy and happy life. You can learn to love yourself and have healthier relationships with other women. You can attract different types of females. You absolutely can. You know, there is hope, and I hope that you now believe that. Namaste, dear ones, as I bow to the love and the light that is absolutely in you. Bye for now.